Well, happy 2024, Colorado. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for January 7th, 2024. Every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state. Of course, you can find all of the links at freestatecolorado.com, previous weekly roundups, and lots of interviews. I'm hitting the year off strong with lots of interviews with our Liberty leaders from across Colorado, everybody from the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party to Representative Scott Bottoms, who's suing Governor Polis and Speaker of the House Julie McCluskey, to Kim Munson, radio show host and president of the Colorado Union of Taxpayers. I have an interview coming out with Dave Williams here shortly, as well as some of our other Liberty leaders across Colorado. So check that all out at freestatecolorado.com. Of course, you can follow on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram is where the archives go. So let's move on. Let's see what's going on this week in Colorado news. First, I want to talk about, we got a little catch up to do here. So, not exactly this week, but a story that needs to be mentioned, needs to be brought up. This one cannot be forgotten. This is from Gazette.com, an editorial from December 26, 2023. A potshot at the press from the Gov's mansion. Well, no surprise there. Jared Polis and his husband there, Marlon Reese, is a rabid anti-animal activist, anti-meat activist, and some people who really do not understand or respect Colorado's rural lifestyle. Let's see what the editorial here has to say. It could have been any noisy animal rights activist from the political fringe publicly denouncing someone who dares to disagree with the controversial introduction of wolves into Colorado. Only, this particular animal rights activist happens to be Colorado's official first gentleman, Marlon Reese, spouse to Governor Jared Polis, and the target of his vituperation is respected journalist Rachel Gable, who is widely read in Colorado's agricultural world and whose column appears weekly in the Gazette and Colorado Politics. Rice doesn't just differ with Gable in a lengthy thread of Facebook comments he posted over Christmas weekend. He repeatedly personally attacks her abilities in standing as a journalist and urges the public to never trust anything Rachel Gable writes. Wow. Which reminds us a bit of our immediate past president bullying the news media and duking it out with the White House press corps. Of course, I'm sure Polis and his husband there do not appreciate being compared to Donald Trump, I'm sure. It also makes us wonder whether our politically astute governor winced while reading Reese peevishly accuse Gable of seeking, quote, not to report the truth, but to inspire fear. Or when Reese pettily huffed in the same post, I'll never understand how she got hired as a journalist. Wow. For the record, Gable, who is also a rancher, got hired as a journalist because she has in-depth knowledge of agriculture, wildlife, natural resources, and rural Colorado life, and she has extensive experience covering those and related areas. She renders it all in a clear and compelling voice. In addition to writing her column, she also serves as assistant editor of the rural and ag-themed news outlet, the Fence Post magazine. And that's when she's not rescuing calves in the middle of the night during a blizzard on Colorado's eastern plains. In other words, Gable knows her stuff. What evidently tripped Reese trigger, drawing his wrath and his accusation of shoddy journalism, is Gable's reporting that two Oregon-born wolves, just released the other day in Colorado, hail from a pack known to have killed livestock. He nitpicks at her presentation without ever refuting her point. This isn't the first time Reese's role as animal rights point man splashed back on the Polis administration. His friend and fellow activist Ellen Kessler, who was in that picture at the top of the article here, was appointed to the state veterinary board and infuriated livestock producers with her antics and derogatory remarks. She called ranchers lazy and nasty, responding to a Facebook post by Reese, and resigned under fire days later. Born and bred Boulderite Polis already is about as popular as a hailstorm among the state's farmers and ranchers. The last thing the rumored presidential hopeful needs is to widen the gap between himself and rural Colorado, or to drive a wedge between himself and the press. Race can come across as knowledgeable and articulate even if his views on wildlife tend to be outlandish. Not all wolves kill livestock, he insists in one post. Each wolf is an individual. How would you like to be judged by the behavior of your parents? He had to train his sights on his disagreements over policy rather than disparaging the press and public. Consider his snippy rejoinder to a critic who warns in the same Facebook thread that wolf reintroduction will do a lot of damage. You're incorrect, but there's no crime in being wrong, he smirks. I hope you can find something positive to help you get you over this hump, especially during the holidays. The first gentleman is entitled to his views on animal rights, but his snark is unbecoming of his title, even if the post is only ceremonial. It sure doesn't help the governor's public image. And as for his critique of Gable's journalism, Reese is out of his league. So pretty good editorial there from the Gazette. Definitely, it's interesting kind of look behind the curtain at the Polis household, I suppose you could call it, to see an anti-agriculture, anti-rancher, anti-meat bias. Polis, of course, is a Polish politician who hides his views pretty well when it comes to agriculture. Well, somewhat well, at least. There's plenty of examples where he hasn't done that in the past. But this kind of reveals a deeper hostility towards rural Colorado that I think needs to be exposed, and it's out there, people. So rural Colorado needs to do everything possible to solidify their own independence, their own power away from the governor and Denver, of course. Let's go ahead and move on. One more article about Jared Polis here from ColoradoPolitics.com. Sean Duffy. Polis to skirt true state of Colorado economy in state of state speech. January 5th, 2024. The turn of the calendar means it's time for another governor's State of the State speech. Rather than predict what Governor Polis will say, let's focus on what he's guaranteed to be omitted. The SOTS, as it's known, is basically a 1 hour commercial for the governor and his administration. It's a report card and an agenda setter. And for Jared Polis, well into his second and final term, it's a window into how he will shape his legacy. Having helped Colorado's last Republican governor craft several of these speeches, I know that, above all, the address is a tool for great headlines before legislators start firing javelins at each other. Which reminds us of an often repeated Bill Clinton quote. No, not thanks for the plane ride, Mr. Epstein. It is don't follow the headlines, follow the trend lines. The headlines Governor Polis hopes for would tout how the Polish economy, as he calls it, is humming along. This was his focus in the spectacularly unsuccessful efforts to convince voters the Proposition HH tax hike was a tax cut. But the trend lines tell a more troubling tale. First, imagine a great Colorado economy, a national magnet for locating or expanding businesses. Whether an entrepreneur's small company or larger energy or manufacturing entities, family sustaining career paths broadly available thanks to high quality education, low business costs, and restrained regulations. A place where workers can build a life, buying a home in a safe neighborhood, perhaps in a clean and energetic downtown. It was that and more not many years ago. The Polish economy, rather than offering a smooth, paved road to opportunity for earned success in business and in life, too often creates a difficult to climb, rocky, steep path. It's hard to start or sustain a business in the Polish economy with progressive lawmakers, abetted by the governors and his appointments to regulatory boards, piling mountains of expensive and often needless regulations on companies. Though these regulations may generate good progressive headlines, one study showed a sampling of just 7 new laws and regulations cost more than $2 billion. So much for the governor's oft stated mantra of saving people money. Think of those businesses. Think if those businesses could have invested that $2 billion into growing jobs, paying employees more, or buying new equipment. That's only part of the story of why Colorado is increasingly expensive. Our cost of living trend line continues to grow faster than the national 3.1% average. Contributing to that growth is the 11% spike in household gas and utility prices, soaring way above the 0.2% average increase nationwide. Building your future in the Polish economy may include the dream of moving on from renting and toward owning your own piece of property, maybe a townhouse or a condominium. You have a better chance to borrow from George Strait or finding some oceanfront property in Arizona. Thanks to faulty, antiquated construction liability laws that make building condos unaffordable but line lawyers' pockets, Colorado ranks last in the nation in housing competitiveness, according to the Common Sense Institute. In fact, only one condo is being built for every 14 apartments. But if you can purchase an attainable home, perhaps in one of the more densely populated urban or suburban communities, you will confront growing issues of homelessness and crime. These are human issues, but also quality of life and economic issues. Ask downtown merchants and restaurateurs how the state of their state is as 2024 commences. Don't look for a podium shout out from the governor that the state had the highest increase in family homelessness in the nation at nearly 70%. In Denver alone, homelessness has increased almost 50%. An economic growth area in the Polis economy is the black market for stolen automobile catalytic converters. Colorado is third in the nation for property crime rates, including auto theft. We batted cleanup in FBI statistics for combined violent and property crimes, ranking fourth in the nation. If you're one of the few who owns a condo in downtown Denver, watch out for tiny livestock. An above average national trend line is that Colorado's capital city is number 8, proving the rattiest in the nation, according to Orkin, the pest control company. Each year, the company measures the number of new rodent treatments ordered, and Denver clocked in at 8. At least there's one positive economic trend line for the governor to tout. Pest control jobs are booming in the Polis economy. Sean Duffy is a former deputy chief of staff to Governor Bill Owens, a communications and media relations strategist and ghostwriter based in the Denver area. So, pointing out some of the failures of the Polis administration, of course, we can't forget to talk about this massive migrant crisis that's going on in downtown Denver. Colorado is basically a sanctuary state, allowing a lot of people coming here, seeking a better life for sure, but causing some real issues in terms of the numbers of people here. So, crime, homelessness, the migrant crisis, the rising cost of living, the attack on businesses, the attack on our agricultural community. And Jared Polis has a negative legacy that really needs to be exposed. We can't let him whitewash. We can't let Jared Polis whitewash his legacy here in Colorado as he moves on towards higher ambitions. Let's go ahead and move on here. Moving on from Colorado's governor, let's talk about Colorado's controversial Secretary of State. This is from 12/29/2023, thehill.com. Colorado Secretary of State praises Maine counterpart over Trump decision. Of course she does. Jena Griswold is an activist. She's an activist first and foremost, a nonpartisan Secretary of State second. She pushes hard to push an agenda. Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold praised her Maine counterpart in the wake of her decision to kick former President Trump off of the state's primary ballot under the 14th Amendment in a recent interview. Quote, I do think Secretary Bellows is brave and courageous, Griswold said in an interview on MSNBC about Maine Secretary of State Sheena Bellows, Democrat. She is the first individual by herself having to make this decision. So that's really all I wanted to talk about here. Of course, the Supreme Court, the courts are putting Trump back on the ballot, but it just goes to show you what Jena Griswold's real thoughts are, as if you didn't know. In case you didn't know, she does not want Trump to be the president again, of course, and will do everything in her power, legal or not, in my estimation, to prevent that from happening, to take away Colorado voters' ability to vote for Donald Trump, the former president of our country. Let's take a look at a more recent headline from Jena Griswold. DailyCaller.com. Colorado Secretary of State, who supports removing Trump from ballot, attended private Biden campaign fundraiser. Of course she did. This is from January 4th, 2024. Democratic Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold attended a closed-door campaign event for President Joe Biden in November, according to remarks on the White House website. Secretary of State Jena Griswold and Attorney General where's Phil? There you are, Phil. I didn't see you there. And all the state and local officials, I want to thank you for being here. Big thanks to all of you, Biden said at a campaign event in Denver, Colorado, at a private residence on November 28th. In late December, Griswold urged the Supreme Court to uphold a decision to bar former President Donald Trump from the state's ballot. Griswold also said Trump engaged in insurrection and was disqualified under the Constitution from the Colorado ballot. Griswold's comments come just 1 month after she attended the campaign event. So there you go. Secretary of State is totally partisan, pushing an agenda to do everything she can to get Trump off the ballot and help Biden win, or whoever the Democrat nominee tends to be. Let's go ahead and move on. The Great Complete Colorado page 2. Of course, CompleteColorado.com is a website you should be checking every day. I'm very thankful for them sharing the work that I do. This is from Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. Colorado bag ban, an arrogant exercise in power. Yes, it is. This ban on plastic bags and styrofoam containers is absolutely insulting to the people of Colorado, who are human individuals capable of making their own decisions. If I want to use a piece of plastic to carry my groceries in, I should be allowed to. Absolutely and utterly ridiculous. January 3rd, 2024. It's not the banning of plastic bags that pisses us off. It's the intolerance and abuse of power behind it. Plastic shopping bags are now forbidden in Colorado. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst inconvenience or even most expensive headache our state government has thrown at us. I mean, just bring a reusable bag to the supermarket. No biggie. So why does it anger us so? Because we can feel it in our bones. Instinctively, we understand that this is a senseless exhibition of raw, unbridled power by an elite who smugly know how others should live. Well said, John. There are plenty of big, complex issues for us to dissect from different angles. Think abortion, monetary policy, Ukraine, and the Middle East. Banning plastic bags, by contrast, is small enough for us to get our hands and minds around. And we're not nearly as angry about the bother of not having the bags as we are about the nagging feeling in the back of our heads. That little voice that says if they can force us to do something this stupid and meaningless, what isn't off limits? Let's again get the argument that this is somehow useful policy out of the way. Banning plastic bags does absolutely nothing to protect Colorado's environment. In fact, it's marginally more destructive since people will be forced to buy truly single use bags to clean up after their dogs and line their trash cans. I remember the government school in Soviet re education camp style teaching my kid to sing Reduce, Reuse, Recycle song. Is there a better example of reuse than plastic grocery bags? We use them to carry other stuff, pick up dog poop, line trash bags, among a host of other uses. Excuse me. The brand new strictly single-use bags we'll have to buy now for those functions are not made from natural gas like shopping bags. They're made from petroleum and will be around a lot longer. Congratulations, environmentalists, you won a Pyrrhic victory. And likewise, it won't save ocean life. Enviros love to talk about a plastic straw found in the nose of a sea turtle, but guaranteed it didn't come from landlocked Colorado. Even if it got into the water supply, the many water treatment facilities it would have to get through before hitting the ocean would stop it. Reduce litter? Perhaps on the margin. So ban bottles, beer cans, and gum wrappers too. Wouldn't it be better to enforce the litter laws? Clearing the homeless off of our streets would do 1,000 times more to get litter out of our communities. So why are they forcing us to live with this inconvenience that is absolutely, positively, without a doubt, no environmental benefit? I see two possible explanations. The first is the most effective tactic the left employs, boiling the frog slowly. Like compound interest, the power of small, incremental, despotic change over time is unstoppable. As people acclimate to a restriction, it becomes the new baseline. The command and control crowd uses the new normal, ratchet, to build tolerance of their authoritarianism in the hearts and minds of those they rule. A government that takes away plastic bags today will take away gas stoves tomorrow and gasoline powered cars soon after. But it's the other explanation that is more distressing. They do this just because they can. The left is smitten with virtue signaling and just can't resist forcing you to do their signaling too. All it takes is a wave of the dictatorial hand. So instead of convincing us to join them in their lifestyle choices, they coerce us through the power of law. It takes only 33 representatives, 18 senators, and our libertarian governor to force their lifestyle on us. It's pure arrogance. It's an exercise in raw dictatorial power and intolerance. And it's an addiction our leaders couldn't shake, even if they did recognize it. It's not the bad, even comical public policy that quietly terrifies us. Though we don't verbalize it, it hits us in our hearts. Though small, we know this is a violation of all the principles we hold dear: our liberty, our pursuit of happiness, our right to be autonomous creatures in a free society. On some level, we know they are just beating us down. Well said, John. Yes. He hits the core of the issue there that if they can do this, they can do anything, right? This is total social engineering. It is not the proper role of government to tell us how we can carry our groceries around. They should be adjudicating, judgments in courts, dealing with property disputes, dealing with criminal issues. That's what the government should be involved in. Maybe infrastructure, if you want to even go that far, but not deciding if plastic bags are legally allowed or not. The other part of this that John didn't talk about is the idea that anytime something's illegal or forbidden by the government, it means that the force of law, which means the force of violence, can be used against those people violating that law. So if you had a business, maybe you had a large grocery store who didn't follow the law and they came after you, they could fine you, they could shut you down. If you refuse to comply, the law enforcement could use violence against you for not following a plastic bag law. That is the insidious nature of all of these government regulations that seem innocuous, but actually are backed up by the barrel of a gun. It's absolutely and utterly disgusting. Great article from Jon Caldara there. Please share that one around. Let's go ahead and move on. Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition. If you haven't seen it, I have an interview with Jeffrey Roberts, the executive director last year, explaining some of Colorado's open record laws. In this uh, in this article he has here, it's the coloradofoic.org from January 6th, 2024. Lawmakers' use of anonymous quadratic voting system violates Colorado's open meetings law, judge rules. Colorado lawmakers' use of an anonymous online survey, which we talked about last year, to prioritize bills impacting the state budget thwarts the entire process of the Colorado open meetings law because it shields the public from knowledge that it would otherwise be entitled to know, a judge found Friday. While describing the quadratic voting process as a useful tool that enables elected representatives to consider as many proposals as possible, Denver District Court Judge David Goldberg prohibited senators and representatives from using it without full transparency as required by the Open Meetings Law. Ruling on a lawsuit brought by the conservative Public Trust Institute and Douglas County resident David Fornoff, Goldberg determined that the voting structure is administered for legislators by the Radical Exchange nonprofit is a meeting under the statute which considers gatherings of 2 or more members of the state public body to be open to the public at all times, if the body discusses public business related to its policy making function. Because the process is considered a meeting and because the nature of quadratic voting through radical exchange is non-public, the procedure as currently constituted violates Colorado open meeting law, the judge wrote. Simply put, ranking a bill and emphasizing the importance of a bill evidences that legislators' mental impressions, including strategic considerations, trading relationships, and sympathetic ideologies with other legislators. The ruling says these considerations may conflict or be consonant with a position that the legislator has taken with his or her constituents. The public has the right to know. So definitely check that out. Really interesting article. Dive into that. Really support the Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition. If you haven't or do not, they are a great organization fighting for transparency. Totally nonpartisan. A totally nonpartisan organization. Just making the politicians, making the political class adhere to open meetings laws, to freedom of information requests, Colorado Open Records Act, and all the Colorado Sunshine laws that are so important for us to have a representative government here in Colorado. Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition doing the great work out there. All right, let's move on. Looking at the legislature, starting here this week on January 10th, state legislature will convene for their 120-day session. I'm sure bringing a lot of harm, unnecessary regulation, and issues to Colorado residents. This is from the Sum and the Substance, tsscolorado.com. Colorado legislative preview. Businesses will play both defense and offense. From Ed Sealover, January 5th, 2024. Business leaders prepared for a seemingly unrelenting stream of proposed regulations, limits on fossil fuel production, and added cost to employers as the 2023 legislative session began. They got all they expected, but managed to fight many of the bills off. Now, as the legislature prepares to begin its 2024 session on Wednesday, those same business leaders are approaching the 120-day period with 2 frames of mind. Many are expecting that legislators whose business opposed initiatives died or got watered down last year will come back with chips on their shoulders and bills that could prove even more burdensome to employers. Proposed mandates around air quality permitting could get tougher. A defeated effort to limit restaurants' scheduling practices could affect more industries, and discussions about property tax reform could lead to tax rate hikes on short-term rentals. But there is hope, too. With the politically toxic atmosphere raising questions over the fate of any controversial bill, that this could be the year to team with Republicans, embolden moderate Democrats, and Governor Jared Polis to pass consensus legislation to boost the business atmosphere. Polis is leading the charge to bolster a workforce development system that isn't working for too many employers. A bill is coming to streamline business led efforts to remove carbon from the air, and more majority party Democrats are calling for construction defects reform. So, check this out. Of course, Colorado businesses, Colorado entrepreneurs have been under the gun, under attack from Colorado legislators for a long time now. But hopefully, with the moderate Democrat split, fighting against the progressive authoritarian left, there's a chance. There's a chance for bad legislation to be stopped and maybe some good pro business legislation to pass. So, really good in depth article. Pay attention to the legislative session. Of course, Free State Colorado will be tracking legislation throughout the entire 120 days. So, look forward to joining me on that journey if you're interested. Last thing I want to talk about this week is on meetup.com. It's our Northern Colorado Liberty on the Rocks. So in Fort Collins, we'll be meeting at Backdoor Grill on Wednesday, January 10th at 7 p.m. So Liberty on the Rocks, Northern Colorado meets twice a month. The second Wednesday of every month, we meet in Fort Collins, and the fourth Wednesday of every month, we meet in Greeley. So come and check it out. If you want to grow your Liberty community, meet some people, maybe have a couple drinks, have some dinner, and get to know people who believe in liberty and freedom, self-ownership, personal responsibility. These are the people you want to know, right? Entrepreneurs, maybe people involved in cryptocurrency, gun rights, some of the other big issues out there in terms of our liberty, our free markets, and our personal responsibilities. So check it out. Meetup.com, search for NOCO, Liberty on the Rocks, Liberty on the Rocks NOCO. We'll be posting events there throughout the year. So awesome. So thank you very much for joining me. Appreciate you. It's 2024. We'll be doing this every week is the goal. Every week to go through some of the headlines, news stories, and articles. Really try and prioritize some of the bigger ones. Keep this short for you. But thank you so much for joining me. Stay tuned to freestatecolorado.com and, of course, on all the social media platforms to see what's going on here in this very important 2024 legislative session and election year. So thanks and take care.